Hello, I'm Jerry Ryan. No, I'm Robert Picardo, and I'm on the Shuttle Pod Show. But after that, and I said, I'm a doctor, not a nightlight, with this sour expression. Got a huge laugh, walked out, and was hired that day. And my children, years later, because my kids were very young, they taught me. They said, Dad, the reason you were cast is your resting bitch face. Because when my face is at rest, I look mean, I have very dark eyes, and I look, don't mess with me.
I'm smiling.
At rest.
Brilliant.
Gonna go and do my convention thing. Got my costume, I'm going now. Yeah, we're having a ball. It's Star Trek, y'all. Hey, there's a order. Beam me up.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Shuttle Pod Show. Today we have very special guest, Robert Picardo. We'll be answering your fans' questions, doing some Star Trek trivia, finding ourselves on Connor's remote island, of course, and much more. As always, our Patreon members get a full extended version of this episode. I'm Erica LaRose, but before we move on, we have a special message from Andrew Robinson.
Like, subscribe, and join us on Patreon.
Thanks, Andy.
And now, as always, for your hosts, Connor Trinneer and Dominic Keating.
Hey, somebody had a birthday.
Yes,
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
to
you.
Aw.
It was a really fun party, wasn't it?
Yeah, thank you for coming. Sorry you couldn't be there.
Well, I was there in spirit.
If you guys were here, I would have invited
I
you.
wasn't invited. Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's what happens when you show up a day too late.
Right.
Story of my career.
I got a free swim at the Hilton pool.
Yes, you did.
Beverly Hills Hilton pool.
I was
No
really
less.
impressed because I didn't go in and
Some
you were
lap work?
up in there with
Oh,
your...
yeah.
Oh yeah, he had the whole
Get up.
like pro swimmer uniform on, the
you
hat.
Never, you never go in the pool right after the 3-year-olds have their first.
They
swimming
were in
lesson.
there.
Oh yeah, that's it.
They were, grab assing around. And I did say to them, guys,
Yeah.
I'm going to be just right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's typical, isn't it?
Working
Whenever you
on his
say
strokes.
that, however they do it, I don't know how it is, but sure as shit, when you're doing the backstroke, there they were.
They're kids.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
suggestion.
And the
they-
big
they often
one said,
don't-
oh my God, you scared me.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I did ask, guys. I did ask.
Now
That's
get
when
out.
you throw
And,
them up onto the cement.
And I'm holding knives the next time I come back.
Yeah.
I found out where your deserted island is. Catalina. Anyway.
You see this? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers, welcome back to the Shuttle Pod Show. We are once again here at the Matrix Theater, and as we're guests of Rogue Machine Theater.
Thank you,
And
Rogue.
Thank you, Rogue.
God bless you.
You guys have been great to us. And today in the Golden Throne, it's a thrill to have you here, an actor's actor, a very fine one at that, a purveyor of fine caps, and a great guy all around. Robert Picardo, thank you.
Thank you
I'm so
very much.
excited.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just trying.
I should have had a hat on.
I'm just trying to, to
didn't
give
get the memo.
Dominic.
I didn't.
Now, come on. I mean, you can't sit next to this kind of fashion. Well, apparently you can, without being influenced by it. But
We're lucky I'm not in sweats.
God bless you, Bob, for coming down.
Thank
It's
you. It's
really
a pleasure
lovely
to be
have
here.
you here.
I've been wanting to do this since I first heard about you. I've heard about your enormous success and what a loyal fan base you have. So now I'm going to try to just plateau off
To
your
it.
success.
God bless, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
What are you up to?
Well, first of all, it's great to be back in this theater. I did when I first came out from New York with a play I had done on Broadway.
Was that Gemini?
And no, this was the play with Jack Lemmon.
The last
We could get to
tribute.
that later. This
Right,
was
yes,
tribute.
right.
And then I decided to stay, on for 6 months to see if I got a job, and that turned into 43 years, as it does. But at that time,
Not for everyone.
I did a play here at this theater with Paul Michael Glaser. It was a satire of the Bogart. The Bogart movies like Maltese Falcon. Paul Michael Glaser played Bogart. Caroline McWilliams, now deceased, wonderful, sweet woman and terrific actress, used to be on the show Benson. I think
Of
was
course,
one of her-
yes.
And a large and varied cast, and we were all supposed to be sort of denizens of the film noir night, like Maltese Falcon. I had the Peter Lorre part. But I didn't talk like this because my character was called Raoul Jamaica. and I think he was supposed to be Hispanic. So I had a pencil mustache and a fedora on. And the only thing I remember about the show is I'm discovered upstage. Now, of course, for the audience's sake, this is the audience over there. The stage is over that way. But I'm upstage. I'm right next to this giant lamppost, which was beautifully lit, and I'm in silhouette, and I'm smoking a cigarette. And
It's like an 80s video for...
I have this, I'm smoking like this, though. And then, and I'm threatening one of the other characters. They're trying to get information. And then after smoking like this for a while, you suddenly see this.
The other hand comes out.
and then you start to see this. It's a gag I never saw before, but I thought I'd be twice as threatening if I was a two-fisted smoker.
Did you dream that up yourself?
I did dream it up myself, and the director loved it. Also now gone, Joseph Hardy, a very funny man. So anyway, yes, I was a two-fisted smoker. Now I fully expect someone in your audience who's an actor, who's doing a play sometime, you're going to steal the double cig. I just want to make it clear now.
It was mine.
It's mine. I'm the first guy to do it. I've never seen it again. So if I see it, I know where you got it.
That's right.
The two-fisted
It's amazing. This theater, when you look at the wall of fame, basically, the number of actors that you're like, oh my God. Was Andy a part of the Matrix?
Oh, absolutely. As I recall, Andy Robinson was probably in the company. They had a company, and I was just a guest performer. I think I've been in here a number of times. They often have, sadly, memorials for actors here as well.
Oh.
And that's also can be quite moving. And moving in, the way actors at a memorial will tell a hilarious story. So one minute you're exploding with laughter, and then it can get quite sad. So I have been here for that as well.
Is that the only play you did here at the Matrix?
I think it's the only time I worked here. And of course, I came to see many friends, other actors that were also Gregory Itzin, who did a great guest star on Voyager. I saw him do a terrific play here.
Even as I arrived in LA in '94, the Matrix was certainly still very much a landmark of theatrical experience here in Los Angeles.
They had a producer named Joe Stern.
Yes,
and during his tenure, which went on quite a while, they had some extraordinary artists here. My dear friend Joe Pantoliano, who I just spoke to yesterday. Joey Pants did the original a play called Orphans.
Yeah, there's a photo of
Yeah.
Joey with Lane Smith, who I'd also worked with in the first play I did in New York with Joey years before.
Was Joey one of the kids then in that production?
Oh yeah, he was one of the kids.
Kidding.
And the other one was a guy named Paul Lieber, also
right.
was great. It was a wonderful play. And
I'm sorry, did it premiere here?
Yeah, I think it had its first West Coast production. The guy who wrote it, Lyle, gosh, I wish I could remember his last name, but the playwright lived in California, and this is the first. It was produced here.
Right.
In my recollection, it was produced here before they did it at Steppenwolf, because I saw their production too with the wonderful Fraser's dad, John.
Oh yeah,
Mahoney. John Mahoney, lovely.
Was played in the Steppenwolf production. He was great.
I saw a production at what's that theater at Fairfax by the school? Is it Green something?
Greenway Court. Greenway Court.
Al Pacino, Jesse Eisenberg, and Jesse Plemons.
Wow.
About 12, 15 years ago. Yeah, Orphans. In a 200-seater.
Wow.
Before they took it to Broadway.
Wow.
Yeah. It was quite an event.
Yeah. I've seen, I also have seen Pacino
Great play.
in a small theater too. He's very committed.
So you're from Philly.
I'm from Philly.
Where we all just were several weeks ago for the
convention. That's my hometown.
Italian Catholic from Philly.
I'm an Italian I went to Quaker school. That's why I'm so confused. I'm an Italian Catholic.
You're a Quaker too?
I went to a Quaker school.
No, Catholic.
I'm
Quaker.
He's a real Quaker. I was just, it just was a great.
You just happened to go to a great
Quaker
school
that was less than a mile from my house. My mother confided in me, God rest my mother. She said that I wasn't tough enough to go to Catholic school. My own mother told me.
Wow, thanks, Mom.
No, but she was right.
Well, if you've been taught by the
Roman
Christian
Catholic
brothers,
High in Philadelphia, you had to really be able to, you had to really be tough. And so I was sent to the Quaker school where they weren't going to take a swing at me. And it was also, it was walking distance away. And it was an amazing school. Our school became famous in the last several years. There's a show called The Goldbergs on TV. And the guy who created it, Adam Goldberg, went to Penn Charter, my school. The William Penn Charter School, founded by William Penn in a charter with King George before we were even a nation. That's how old the school is.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It's moved.
I think when we were in Philadelphia, I went past that. I saw a plaque to that school. I think I'm pretty sure.
So, so when he made this show, when Adam Goldberg, is that his real name?
Yeah.
Adam Goldberg, right? Named it after his family. He has a penchant for using real names and real events in his show. He got permission from our school. He just took the charter out of the name, so it's the William Penn School. But he used the names of all of his teachers there during his tenure. And he also, I believe, that the school benefits from the show in some way because they use so much of it. But he also, then he had a spinoff called Schooled. And in the spinoff, he recreated something that had happened when he was 14 years old there. The Star Trek actor, Robert Picardo, who'd also been on the Wonder Years and everything, I would come back and talk to the kids at school who were interested in acting. And he did an episode where they're trying to get more funding for theater instead of the football team. So they were having Robert Picardo come to meet with, So I come back to my own school playing myself 25 years younger.
So great.
And to me, the funniest thing about it was that he had a gym teacher on the show named Mr. Meller, who is based on a real guy, who is so over the top, kind of, macho, sort of like that. So he said, yeah, Picardo, I saw him on the Wonder Years. I thought he was totally over the top. So
because you were playing coach on that.
They were making, exactly, I'm playing a gym coach just like him. So they're making fun of him, making fun of me, which was like several layers of reality, too much fun. But I loved my school. Philadelphia is a great city. I always loved going home. I have my older sister and my brother live there, so it's a pleasure to be there. And we were all there for that same Galactic Diversity and Inclusion Convention.
That's right.
To encourage inclusiveness, not only in science fiction, but real science, which I thought it was a great event.
It was a great event, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Happy to be there.
Yeah, well
My
done
first
for the
time to Philly, and we had a great time. It's what a city.
Yeah.
Steeped
Great
in
food city.
Great food city, steeped in history.
Yeah.
Because you weren't meant to be an actor at all.
I was not.
You were going to be a guy. You were actually going to be a doctor.
Are you saying that because you've seen my work, or just because you read my bio?
I hazarded it was a pretty good guess.
I was on the fast track to go to medical school. I loved
Yale
science. I got into Yale. I was a very good student back then. I took advanced biology, and yes, I enrolled at Yale with the intention of being pre-med. I announced myself as a biology major, and then late my sophomore year, and I still tried to do theater at Yale because I'd done theater at Penn Charter. It was an all-boys school. The only way to meet humans that looked like Erica was to be in the school play. If you wanted to meet a girl,
there are many humans that look like Erica.
You either had to be good at a sport, either particularly football, maybe baseball second. If you weren't good as an athlete, you could be in the school play and then meet girls who came from the sister school and performed in the play with you. Other than that, you were out of luck. So since I was a crappy athlete, I was in the school play starting in ninth grade. The play that began my career, we had this class clown named Bill Barker, who has gone on to become an actor himself. If you've ever been to Colonial Williamsburg, you've seen him impersonate Thomas Jefferson. He is the premier
Thomas Jefferson
impersonator of Thomas Jefferson. He did it for years at Colonial Williamsburg, and then also and now at Monticello. He pushed me on stage in ninth grade in a old play called Box and Cox. It sounds like a porn movie. It's not. I'm sorry.
I think I knew a copy of that.
I knew his mind would go there. Yes. No, Box and Cox is about a guy named Mr. Box and a guy, not what you think. Or else it's not the Box and Cox you've seen late at night.
It's a different Box and Cox.
Yeah, different one entirely. Anyway, it's
who could I play?
Middle of the 19th century. The original play is this conniving landlady is making double rent because she has a tenant who works by day and a tenant who works by night, and so they never met each other. Right. So she changes the room around and all that, and is making that's the setup. And then it really was a satire of all of the ridiculous coincidence in melodramas of the day. It's a complete farce. It's very funny. And one of them is middle class, is a haberdasher. He makes hats, and the other one is a printer, so he's lower class. And they meet, and you talk like this, and I talk like this. I was the fussy one. And it was like, I say so. Well, sir, it was all that sort of thing, you know. You'll excuse the apparent absurdity of the remark, but the more I gaze upon your features, the more I am convinced that you are my long-lost brother. It's, you know, tell me, in mercy, tell me, have you by chance a strawberry mark on your left arm? No? Then it is he! You know, it's that silly.
And you're 14?
14 years old. So that was my debut. It was such a hit.
God bless you. Still
that he
remember
got
some
me,
of the lines.
he got-
That's
Well,
fantastic.
the reason I remember it is I've done it every 15 years since then. Oh, I do the play every 15 or 20 years. I'm doing it again
There?
in San Francisco one night.
Right.
Really?
I've done it when they opened the Arts Center at Penn Charter in 2010. We all, the same cast as ninth grade, we did it again. And senior year back then, we did the musical version of the play, which Arthur Sullivan of Gilbert and Sullivan fame wrote when he was 24, before he started to work with. So it's a very funny.
So Box and Cox is in the fabric of your life.
It is the fabric, but the Box and Cox I'm describing. I don't want you to say Picardo. You ever talk about his experience with? Never mind.
He did a production in Van Nuys about mid-90s.
So is it a one-man piece? And you play
No, it's
both?
three characters.
It's three characters,
Oh,
right.
it's what's wonderful when they finally meet. First of all, they're furious at the landlord. I'm sorry, it's a landlady in the play. In the musical, it's a landlord because Arthur Sullivan wanted to have a military number. So he turned the landlady into a retired military man so we could have a big military. And that's a very funny song. But anyway, as I talked about the ridiculous coincidences, not only when they're thrown together, they're furious at the landlord, but they have to wait until the landlord prepares an attic room that we never see that one of them will move into. Meanwhile, they discover they're both engaged to the same woman. They both can't stand her because she's older and they were marrying her for her money.
Money.
The other guy, not me, faked his own suicide to get out of the wedding, but now I've discovered who he is, and I'm going to make sure that I reintroduce him to his intended wife so I can get out of it. So it's one absurd, ridiculous coincidence after another, and very,
sounds
very
What sort of year was this written, this play?
John, who wrote it? John Madison Morton. And it was just a farce and done and premiered obviously
Was
in
it
London.
a late 1700s thing, or was it an 1800s?
I think it's like 1840
right.
or 1850, the musical a few years later.
Right. So,
Very
proper
funny.
farce.
Yes, I highly recommend it.
When are you putting it up again?
I'm doing it again in about a month at an outdoor theater up north. It'll be probably a command performance only, which one night only, meaning we command you to not do it again. I had hoped to do it with my original high school mate, but he was not unable to take it because of his own schedule. So
Well, how fun
sadly-
is that to be able to do that, though, over
Oh,
the
yeah.
years?
Oh, we did it. We did it after he came up when I was at Yale. We did it at Yale when I was an undergrad, and he was an undergrad elsewhere. We did it as a benefit for the Philadelphia Historical Society in the late 70s, early 80s, and then we did it for the opening of the new Arts Center at the William Penn Charter School about 12.
At what point did you realize you had a voice for singing? Was that early on as a schoolboy? And
I sang in school. I always loved being in the chorus when I was a kid. My mom used to teach me that she knew I liked singing because I moved my head more than anyone else in the chorus. All the other kids would sing like this, and I was like, so that apparently meant that I loved
then when you got
singing.
to Yale, you joined Orpheus and Bacchus, which is
This guy does his homework, doesn't he? Yes, I did.
very long-running.
Hang on a second.
Hang on a second.
You've heard this a few times now. Wikipedia is great. I just want to say Wikipedia is great.
But he does his homework. His fingertips have to do a little effort.
And I remember it.
You do.
Yale is famous for its undergraduate a cappella singing groups.
It's kind of like the footlights at Cambridge or Oxford Review, but
Exactly.
just for singing, right?
And arguably, the Whiffenpoofs are the most famous, perhaps, in the
called the
world.
Whiffenpoof.
The Whiffenpoofs. We are poor little lambs who have lost our way. Ba, ba. You don't know the Whiffenpoofs
sheep.
song?
I do not.
Well, it's the Whiffenpoofs travel the whole world. They're composed entirely of seniors, but the undergraduate singing groups feed in to the Whiffenpoofs.
Right.
And when I switched at Yale from biology to theater, which was so much easier that I graduated at the end of my.
How did your mum and
third
dad
year.
respond to that? Just quickly.
Well,
I got to ask.
I'll tell you. First of all, my dad sadly had died when I was quite young. I was only 9. So my mother miraculously put the 4 of us through private college by taking over the family business that my father had created, which was just a single store furniture store. Back then, before the big box stores, you could have a furniture store that was called, imaginatively, Picardo's Furniture. And we were right across the street from my cousin's Italian restaurant in West Philadelphia called Picardi's Italian Food. So we had Picardo's and Picardi's, and it's all the same family. Some of my family in Italy are Picardi's, some are Picardo's. Don't ask me why. They don't even know why.
That's great.
But my dad had this store, and he sadly died at a young age, in his early 50s. So my mother, knowing nothing about the furniture business, picked up the mantle and amazingly took it over, put us all through school. My 3 siblings went to school locally to very good colleges in the Philadelphia area, like Villanova. But I was the one who was going to go to Ivy League college. Went to Yale I had a scholarship from Yale, and I had a scholarship for fatherless boys that was in Philadelphia called the John McKee Scholarship. Wonderful thing. And one of the priorities was that you had to be desirous of, hopefully you were desirous of naval training. So you had to be excellent, good scholarship, very good student. I don't think I wasn't a good athlete, but I think they waived that for my theater things. But then I had to meet with a businessman, a priest, and a naval.
We all went to a bar.
Sounds like that. And when you're the head of a navy, you're not a general. You are a
Admiral.
Admiral. Thank you so much for that. I passed the priest, because I was. And
I don't ask.
I'm a practicing Catholic. You can't know more priest jokes than I do. Don't even try.
Oh, dumb.
I was born a Catholic.
I passed the interview with the priest because I was going to be a doctor, but they didn't make the last. The last one was and he said, "Well, Robert, what are your plans for the Navy?" And I thought, that moment, am I going to lie? And I went, "Well, frankly, sir, I don't have any." And I still got it because apparently back at that time, not a lot of people at that moment in time, at least the other applicants, didn't have plans for the Navy. So I got the scholarship, went to Yale, was being a good biology major, still trying to do plays, which was really impossible freshman year because of the lengthy, you had the lengthy labs, and then you had to go right to rehearsal, so you had no time to do your homework. I think I failed. I had never failed a test in my life.
No kidding.
Going up and the first test I got was an advanced electronics course, which I was an idiot to take. But somebody told me, when you get to college, you can finally take courses in things you think you're interested in. Yeah. Don't take advanced electronics when you're a freshman and you know nothing about electronics. I failed the very first quiz, and I went into a tailspin of like, oh my God. I failed my first test. That doesn't bode
Not a good
well.
start.
But then you were at that time you could pick one thing for pass fail, and I really worked my ass off, and I managed to pass that course. Otherwise, I got very good grades. Nonetheless, third year, I was in a production that changed my life. I had been in a couple of theater things. I was in this late night play that was a little kinky and weird, and all of the Andy Warhol people from New York came up to see it because the guy I played opposite was from the Yale School of Architecture, but he was one of the most wonderfully, hilariously, openly gay people that I had ever met at that age. His name was Buddy. He had bleached hair before any man bleached his hair that I'd seen. He had Elton John glasses 4 years before Elton John had Elton John glasses. He was like he was the head of whatever the next wave was going to be. I'm in a play with him. Everyone on the campus came to see this show. It was a musical. It had a big cast, but he and I had...
He was at Yale too.
That was at Yale.
Yeah.
So I'm scouted in that play by a guy named John Mosseri, who was a 27-year-old graduate, just graduating from the Yale School of Music.
Did that lead to Mass?
That led to Mass.
That led to Mass.
He was the conductor of the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra for many years. He's a terrific guy. He's been a very successful conductor of opera and other things and written books. He was the consultant on the movie last year, Tar, about the female conductor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So John, wonderful guy. He pushed me. He said, I saw you in the show. I want you to play this part in the Mass. I couldn't even, at the audition, I couldn't sing high enough. It was way too high.
It's Leonard Bernstein's composition.
And it's all designed. It's designed for all different kinds of voices. The lead character is basically an opera singer, but this was because the music is in all different genres. I had the Broadway number, so it was not an operatic voice, but it still had a high B flat in it, as I recall. John said, "Don't worry about it," and he without telling Bernstein, he took mine down a step. But since all the music, and Bernstein never noticed apparently, but I'm probably getting somebody in trouble now. Yeah. But anyway, he took it down a step. Bernstein came to see, and this is the first time the show had ever been produced, other than its opening at the Kennedy Center. It had been commissioned for the opening of the Kennedy Center. John Mosseri, who was still a student at Yale, had been a conductor for Bernstein's chorus of a revival of the opera Carmen. He said, Mr. Bernstein, I think they screwed up your piece at the Kennedy Center. It was very glitzy and all that. I think a poor theater production of it would be great. And Bernstein said, go ahead, do it. Gave him the rights to do it at Yale. Bernstein came to see it and loved the show and loved me. Called me the great Picardo. I didn't realize it was a joke on The Great Caruso, which was a movie about, And he asked if I could sing the lead in the show. He asked them, and they went, no. And I went, no, I couldn't, because it was way too challenging. But I had a very featured part. There was a real religious figure, that's the opera voice, and I was the evangelical Marjo Gortner, hey, let's all get our rocks off.
Counter to that.
Yeah,
right.
I had the let's all worship because it's a good time. And I had this very irreverent song.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Like that. And I had a giant, believe it or not, I had an afro like this. It was all mine. Flashy clothes. I moved in a way I've never been able to move before.
Stomped around. I've seen this video, and you might have showed it to me.
I showed it to you because it was hidden. Our show was sent to Vienna.
Yes.
To premiere, and then the public television recorded it.
Yeah.
It was before, it was called...
You were still at Yale, right?
And I'm still at Yale. Yeah. No, I had just gone in, by the time it was aired, I was still at Yale when we did it. When they finally edited it and put it on the air, I had just graduated Yale, and I was in my acting class with no credits to my name, and somebody showed me the New York Times, and my face was on the television page of the New York Times, a shot of me. So I must have had a friend.
That's a buzz.
Who took me in a supporting role and put me on the New York Times TV page when the show aired. Wow. Anyway, that show turned me around. Bernstein said, what are you going to do with your life? And I said, I'm pre-med, sir. He said, I would think you'd want to be an actor. You have such wonderful natural energy on stage, not phony Broadway energy. Since then, I've learned to do the phony show. But back then, it was all exuberance.
It's exhausting, though.
So he said, I would think you'd want to be an actor. And I said, sir, would you say this to my mother? And opening night, I brought my mother over to meet Leonard Bernstein, and he said exactly that. I think your son should be an actor. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's what sprung me immediately out of pre-med. You
got the Pope to come over.
But but my mother, I made a pledge to my mother that by 25, if it wasn't looking good,
you'd go back.
I would go back, pick up the pre-med courses, and that would be it.
God bless.
Oh, wow.
But
how quickly did the Gemini show come along then? Because that was pretty 75, wasn't it?
I was I really had a blessed beginning. I got my first professional job before that in a play with Diane Keating.
Sex and Perversity in Chicago.
You remember that was before that, but that was non-union. I was in David Mamet's first produced play in New York.
Let's see what was that.
Sexual Perversity in Chicago.
In Chicago, David Mamet's play.
Before, when it was a non-union cast. In other words, I wasn't even in Actors Equity yet. And the reason I got to be in this was they had rehearsed an equity production, but there was a big dispute between the small theater owners, small theaters like this in New York, and Actors Equity over the showcase code. the producer said, we need to do more than 12 performances or we can't pay for the set and everything. And Equity said, you have to pay the actors. So they argued and argued and argued back then. So right then, a lot of the shows, there was just a standoff. And then the Sexual Perversity in Chicago was about to open with a union cast. They never opened, and they recast it with non-union actors. So that was my first big play.
Such an odd piece. I know the play fairly well. When I first got going in London, I went to school, drama classes at the Actors Studio, and one of the plays that we did a lot of was that Dave Mamet play.
And
it's such a strange
my mother
piece.
Comes to New York to see me for the first time. The last thing she see me do is Bernstein's Mass, which is a little irreverent, but it's basically about having a spiritual connection with the Almighty, in spite of all of the other ups and downs of how organized religion can sometimes pervert the message or the relationship between man and God. That's I think one of the premises. But nonetheless, she'd seen me in the Mass, comes to New York, and then every other scene I have is in bed, clothed, and every third word out of my mouth ends in UNT, right, or UCK.
What was your character?
Dad, I'm the good guy. I'm
You're
Dad. I'm the young one, the one who has a relationship. But literally, there were conversations that I would not repeat to you. If you asked me, I wouldn't tell you, and the camera wasn't on and the mics weren't working, I would not say some of those lines to you now at this stage of life. But back then, and my mother sat in a theater where people were exploding with laughter, and she sat in the first row and never cracked a smile. And afterwards I said, well, Mom, I warned you about the language. What do you think? She went, well, I think you're improving. My mother was so dry. She just didn't say anything about any aspect of the play. Just that was it. That was her one comment.
I love that Dave Mamet joke when there's a homeless person on the streets of New York and a rich businessman walks past, and the homeless man puts his hand out, and the businessman says, neither a borrower nor a lender be William Shakespeare. And the guy goes, fuck you, Dave Mamet.
So how long did you stay in New York?
Well, I got out of Yale, went to New York, got a job waiting tables like any, which Lily Tomlin used to joke that she, I think, loved being a waitress versus, somebody made jokes about how they preferred being a waitress to being an actress later in life. I loved being a waiter. Put myself through acting school.
I always likened waiting tables a lot like doing a play. You knew that at 8:12 on every night, you were probably going to be at table 6, where you were on stage delivering that line. And it was the same sort of,
Yeah.
But it's also, it's all people skills. It's all a performance.
It is people,
And you suss out, this couple is on a date and they don't want to be interrupted. This is an old married couple who are not going to say a word and they want to talk to you rather than each other. You just got the whole
Germans, they're going to need
Feeling
efficiency.
That's right.
Sometimes because all the other waiters had Italian accents, I would say, excuse me, may I bring you something to drink? Would you like a bottle of wine with that? Sometimes I would make a believe that I was.
Where are you from in Italy? Philadelphia.
I literally got caught by one couple. They came came 2 weeks before, and I was Italian.
Oh no!
And they came back, and I was like, "Yeah, can I get you a drink?" And they were like, last time we were here, you were from Italy. I'm sorry.
That was proxy for.
What's that Al Pacino movie when he's scoping out Fool for Love? Anyway, he gets caught out exactly the same.
Just like,
okay.
How quickly does Gemini come around then?
Gemini was
fourth longest running non-musical play in Broadway history.
wow.
And Gemini was written by a playwright from the Yale School of Drama, directed by a director from the Yale School of Drama, had both seen me in Anything Goes, my third and final year at Yale in the fall. I was in the big play that was campus-wide for undergrads. Okay, so they had done Gemini at Playwrights Horizons, where they develop a lot of new plays, and they decided to replace three of the actors. First of all, Sigourney Weaver, who was in the first production, had gotten a play at the Public Theater called Marco Polo Sings a Solo and was convinced that was the better ticket. So she went off to do that, even though we went to
How'd that
Broadway.
work out?
Marco Polo, I hear he may have
it's big as
discovered
swimming
this.
pools now.
Right.
He might have discovered the Spice Trail, but he'd never made it to Broadway. Danny Aiello came in and replaced a wonderful actor named Tom Martirosian, who was simply too young to play the part. And he was like, how can you have a 21-year-old son if you're 28? He was just too young.
Right.
But he did. And then the actor who played my part, also a wonderful actor, now passed, called John Polito, who went on to be in a bunch of, you know him in a second. He was in a bunch of Coen Brothers movies.
Okay.
Terrific actor.
John Polito.
But for whatever reason, it's the problem character in the play in Gemini.
This is Francis Giamini.
Gemignani.
Gemignani.
Francis is a poor kid from South Philadelphia
Right.
who lives in a sort of a ghetto-y type Italian neighborhood with a next-door neighbor, everyone, very foul language. He goes to Harvard on scholarship. And at the beginning of the summer vacation, he's home before his senior year. His very rich girlfriend from Harvard decides to surprise him at home. She's from a wealthy Boston family. And he is so humiliated. And you think she comes with her younger brother, who's a freshman. So she and her brother show up. And you think my character is freaked out and upset because he's embarrassed by how low his roots are and how his father, yo, Francis, how you doing? His father talks like, yeah, these are your friends from school, come on in. Like that. And I'm humiliated. And then you find out the real reason I'm humiliated is I can't decide whether I'm in love with my girlfriend or her freshman brother.
Right.
So it was all about sexual indecision.
wow.
And this was a big step.
Very forward
at its
thinking,
time.
yeah.
It was at its time. This was a big, and to make it to Broadway, we were a big hit out of town. Although I remember it was a very difficult character to play because he's saying no to everybody. He's angry all the time, but you still had to be funny. When I did the play in regional theater out on Long Island at the now defunct, I'm sorry, everybody I mentioned is defunct. I apologize. It's a factor of how old I am. This is the theater, the Performing Arts Foundation of Long Island is now gone. That was the theater we did it at. And the play was still being tinkered with. My first review, and I'll never forget it, was the lead role of Francis is played by a totally charmless actor named Robert Picardo. That was my first major.
Oh, heavens.
Oh,
So it's getting back up on the horse.
that's
So
who
then
wrote that? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I actually
He's
had,
dead.
I had them killed. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I
Never
don't
wrote again.
remember.
But that was what was tough about the role and that's why they had replaced the wonderful actor before me was
It's a tough come.
you had to make the audience root for you rather than go, all these other characters are so much fun. I want you to shut up and go away so I can watch the colorful characters who are life-loving and joyful. And everybody's having a good time and I'm the wet blanket. And you had to make his struggle. You had to make the audience relate to it. And remember, we got a lot of blue-haired ladies in the audience on Broadway. And when you say, I think I'm gay, in 1977, they kind of went, what's this play? What am I, what did I come into?
What did he say?
And the commercial that we had, that we ran forever.
It doesn't look very
Audiences loved the play, but you kind of had to hide what the theme was because it was at the forefront of that. The only other play that had made it to Broadway was called Norman, Is That You? In like the late 60s and early 70s, which was old-fashioned homosexual panic. I think my son is gay. Oh my God. What, that kind of jokey, stupid, insensitive of its day. So we moved the needle, as you would say now, toward acceptance, and yet nobody remembers the play. I mean, Gemini's a far cry from Angels in America. I hit the microphone. Can I come back? Angels in America.
Well, it was great having you.
But Gemini really did I think, help Broadway audiences accept that you could have a theme about a young character who hadn't decided, hadn't really made up his mind yet about. He was in a struggle of identity, and of course back then when a lot of people were still closeted, it was more difficult to come out. So the play was very popular, and because it had heart, and the ultimate message of the play was it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight, those who love you, your family love and support you, and you should jump into life. Don't hide from life. Embrace who you are. Find out who you are, but embrace it and participate in life. Don't hide.
And through the run, did you manage to find that happy medium where he was conflicted and yet vulnerable and likable? Did you?
Yeah, I did, and it was a struggle, and I ended up getting very nice reviews. There was an acting teacher at the time who'd send his class to come see me because he felt that it was not only a very challenging role for a juvenile actor, but that I had worked my way with it. So you believed his struggle, but you could still laugh with him.
You'd found it.
And I had a mad scene. I had a scene where I just explode on stage, where it just all becomes too much. And again, it was like Albert, the playwright, was a huge opera fan. So the play was constructed.
Inarritu, was it? Albert
Inarritu. Yeah. He really constructed a lot of the scenes like scenes from opera. So your character would have an aria. And I had one of those speeches where I just tell everyone off.
Sounds like a really challenging, wonderful piece. And
I would never have gotten it.
Did reviewers come back at the end of runs? At the end of it, did you get?
I only stayed with it for 10 months because I was cast out of that in my second Broadway role, which was a very coveted role to play Jack Lemmon's son
right.
in his return to Broadway. Jack had been scouted by a Paramount talent scout when he was 28 or 9 in a revival of Room Service on Broadway, got offered a 3-picture deal and never came back for 25 years, became a major star, and decided at age 54 he was going to go do a play in New York, written by Bernard Slade, who had had a huge success with Same Time Next Year. So this is
a huge piece to get opposite him.
It was every actor Star Wars had just opened. My agent told me, well, Mark Hamill wants to play the part, and Jack had a son that age, said he wants to play the part. When I finally, this is the first time I ever met Brent Spiner. I'd seen him work in New York, but when I got cast in Voyager, I go to the Next Gen set because they were just shooting their first movie, Generations, right? Mm-hmm. Voyager had just started shooting. Next Gen had finished their 7-year run and was making the handoff movie from the original cast. And Brent is at the food table. It's during a break, and he's at the craft service table. And somebody says, Brent, have you met Bob Picardo? When he turned around and he said, "You got my part in tribute." That was the first thing he said to me. Oh my God, and he was joking. This was 9 years later.
So Brent,
but it was
so
hilarious.
Actor,
didn't say hello. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, fuck that.
And he is he is. And since then. I didn't know his sense of humor at the time. I was a little like, is he kidding?
A little bit.
Now I totally.
A little bit.
Anyway, it was a very lucky, and the only way to get a lead in a Broadway show is to have played a lead in a Broadway show or to be a movie star. So the only way I got the first one is it was a little out of town play that took me to Broadway. But then once I was there, they come. I don't know if Jack Lemmon came to see me. I don't think so. But the producers and everyone, the playwright, they'd all seen me in the play. So I had to go and read 3 times. I read with 3 different actresses and I suddenly realized my last audition, I was the only candidate, which was really scary because the other ones had been 4, 5, 8, whatever. Right. First time, there were many people. Second time, there were callbacks, maybe 6 or 8. I was the only man there and 3 women. And I thought,
this might be me.
I think this is mine to lose.
God bless.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, and working with Jack Lemmon, if I could wish all actors that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wanted to ask, because, I mean, there's a lot of your performance as the Doctor that reminded me a lot of Jack Lemmon, if you will. I mean, do you think you inadvertently, some of that smeared off of you, working with such a notable performer at such a young age, the craftsmanship of his
You flatter me. If you think so, I'm happy to hear it. I don't. I remember Jack would say certain things that tickled me. Like he had this thing. The play took place. There was a sunken living room, so the staircase, and there was a raised part of the living room, and he was sitting. They had like a couch. So I would come and talk to him, and I was right above him. saying something. I was literally right over his shoulder, and he couldn't turn and look at me, obviously, like that. But he would do this thing like this. Because I was frustrating him. And he would do something with one eye, like that. And he said, there's something, he would say to me, there's something funny about one eye. And it was that he would say things like that, that's something he believed that you're not going to get in an acting class, right?
Yeah.
You know, do a one-eyed, do the Cyclops from Jason and the Argonauts, there aren't any one-eyed parts.
Right.
Right. But he said the audience finds that one eye moving independently funny.
Yeah.
And I was like,
It's a big
so
note.
have I done that? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are lots of things you always steal from the greats.
Well, you do.
And we were very naughty on stage together. Because my character was a deadhead. I didn't smile. And the whole joke was that he was a happy-go-lucky, well-loved guy named Scotty. He was a Broadway press agent. And he had found out that he was diagnosed with cancer and had less than a year to live. His son, he was divorced from the mother, and he'd been the most irresponsible father, right? This was based on the playwright had a friend like this. Didn't get along with his son at all. So the son had been raised by another man. The mother remarried. He loved the stepfather, didn't like his father because the playwright said to me, here's the kind of father Jack Lemmon's character was to you. You would get 5 birthday presents in the mail when you're on your 6th birthday, and then the next 3 birthdays you forgot. So that's the way, you just couldn't count on him. And yet everyone else loves him. Everyone you meet goes, oh, Scotty, that was his character. Oh, what a great, you're so lucky to have him as a father. So he's heard that his whole life. He comes home from school right before, I think he's just graduated from college. He has to stay with his mother, with his father for 2 weeks, doesn't like him. And the father has this big message, but doesn't want to burden him with it. He just wants to get to know the kid. So it's very tense. I never smile at his jokes. Everyone else comes in and loves him. But the big surprise for the audience, right, is the play is happening in the theater in that moment. It's called Tribute because all of his friends, of which everyone in the audience is Scotty's friend, they're all there, but you don't know if he's dead, if it's a memorial, or alive. The show is told in flashbacks. People come on, and the first guy comes on and says, hey, everybody, come on, take your seats. It's so great to see all of you here. He never said Scotty would have loved it. Right. They skirt the issue. And people come out and make speeches. The first time I met Scotty, blah, 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 and they tell these wonderful stories about him. And then it flashes back to the reality of him trying to get the son. At the end of the first act, I discover that my mother, who's married to the stepfather I love, has gotten emotional alone with him, and they've had a relapse in the sack. He's gone to bed with his first wife because she feels sorry for it, whatever the hell. And when I find out, I go ballistic. And I had this scene where I just had to yell at him like that, and I'm crying, and I start to stutter again like I did as a kid, and I'm all emotional like this. And it was just, and the women in the audience go, I hate that kid. I hate that. They were like, they hate him because everybody loves Jack Lemmon. And I had this and then in the second act, I go from, couldn't be farther away from him, that through the journey of the second act, talking to other people, finally talking to him, at the end, Jack's on stage alone, and he comes out and he's sick, he's near death, it's really sad, and he can't talk, he can't find the words, and I bail him out from the back of the theater. I start to say jokes, and stupid jokes, Did I tell you about my uncle in Alaska? And he goes, know him? And I go, of course I know him. He's my uncle. And I start doing these old jokes. And he comes out of being a pathetic kind of, I don't know what to say. I for the first time in my life, I can't speak. I come up on stage. We have a big reunion. The audience is crying. We slowly walk off the stage, and Jack's pants drop down.
Oh, my gosh.
The moment, right before he clears the proscenium.
That's brilliant.
It's one of the greatest endings ever. Because there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Very emotionally manipulative, of course. Yeah. But I had to play. I was all over the block. I had to.
You're 22
cry.
at this point.
Yeah, I had everything in a play that's ostensibly, it's a dramedy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But he was so funny in the story, and Jack was hilarious. He dresses up in a giant chicken suit in one scene because when I was a kid, that was the way he made up to me. So, all sorts of crazy, funny things. And
You ran for a year or more, didn't you?
It ran for no one could replace Jack. Anthony Hopkins was too young, came to see it because they offered it to him. Rock Hudson, who was doing Broadway then.
Right.
This is before the tragedy he suffered, contracting AIDS and all that. They did not. He said, "I'll do it." He read the play, said, "I'll do it." Then he came to see the play and said, "I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Out of my league a bit.
I can't do it. I can't." He couldn't do that balance that Jack did. So we ended up closing, and then but we did it in California the following year, and that's what brought me.
That's what brought you to LA?
That's what brought me to LA.
Did you ever get nominated for a Tony?
No, I wish, but no. The play got mixed reviews. Jack got great reviews. I got very nice reviews sometimes, but I realized that every critic, male or female, if they had an issue with a parent or a child, they took sides. When we opened in Boston, we played out of town in Boston, and then we did the Colonial Theater in Boston, the Royal Alex in Toronto. When we opened in Boston, the Dean of Boston Critics, Elliot Norton, professor, he was the most important Boston critic for your show moving forward.
Right.
He wrote a review of me that I couldn't have written myself. The most extraordinary performance in the play is given by a young actor named Robert Picardo. We go 2 weeks later to Toronto. I get the worst review of the play. Did I change my performance?
No.
Honestly. If you think it went to my head in 2 weeks, it didn't. I gave the same performance, and I realized then if the critic, Elliot Norton, an old man, identified for whatever relationship he'd had with his father, he identified with my character. It didn't matter what age you were.
Right.
If you had a parent who you thought was irresponsible or didn't understand you or was trying to force you to be like them or whatever, and that was the prism through which whoever reviewed the play saw it. And I learned at that age, the old axiom we all learn, which is if you can't believe the good ones if you don't believe the bad ones. Right. So you either ignore them all or listen to all of them and take what you can get from it.
Can you ignore them?
I'm not good at that. I have actor friends that I admire the hell out of who never read their reviews. I think Kate Mulgrew is that way. I think Kate doesn't.
Oh, you can't read the reviews. Who cares?
My dear friend Reed Birney, who is going to guest star in the 4th episode of Strange New Worlds, is a brilliant theater actor. He was in Gemini with me, playing the character I had a crush on, the younger brother. Right. He is an extraordinary actor, has won the Tony Award, and I can't wait to see him in a Star Trek episode after years of being teased. It's going to be so great to see my old pal
That's awesome.
working
I'll get
with
the pen out.
Yeah. I'm sure he's never had a false move on
So
stage.
you arrive in LA, and then how long are you in LA before we get to a Star Trek audition?
Wow. Let's see. I was 25, I think, when I came. And Voyager I auditioned for, I guess, at 40. So in those 15 years, I had some theater. At first, it was very hard to go from, some of the casting directors in LA, you say, I'm doing a play with Jack Lemmon. No, I'm not going to go. I know Jack's work. It's like,
But you don't know mine.
I assumed being a human being on the planet the last 25 years, you knew it,
Right.
But some of the, it's like, oh, you're a theater actor, but can you really act on television? That's the real test. It was like,
And did you want to?
I did. I had lost 2 major roles. The play with Jack Lemmon, Robbie Benson did the movie. Even Gemini was made into an unsuccessful. So I had no film.
Yeah. So
I thought I have to learn. I have to get some film. I had done an episode of Kojak in New York.
Yes.
And in rehearsal, I got a little. I remember I'm rehearsing with Telly Savalas again. I played a problem kid. That was what I did.
Right.
And I remember during rehearsal with Telly Savalas, a little tiny globule of spittle flew 12 feet and landed on his head while I'm yelling at him. And I went. I was rehearsal, but I don't think I remembered my lines. I was like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I acknowledge it? Do I say, I'm sorry I spit on your head? Do I run up and buff it out? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what the protocol was. But Telly, who was not a very warm, cuddly guy, slapped me on the shoulder after the scene and went, good, like that. So anyway, I stayed in after I started to work on sitcoms.
You did the Burbs.
I did the Burbs. I did. Here's the early supporters I had. Some writer-producers from the show Alice were theater goers, and they offered me my first, just from seeing me on stage.
Oh,
They
that's
offered me,
excellent.
and I did about 6 or 8 episodes as sort of a deadhead cop, kind of a parody of Jack Webb.
So you got to cut your teeth.
I did. Yeah, I did some, and because I was used to a live audience, that they love that for
a
4
sitcom.
camera shows.
Yeah, right.
I did a few of them. Joe Dante.
Joe Dante was a big supporter, wasn't he?
He saw me in the play with Jack Lemmon and auditioned me to
He did
play
The
a
Howling?
werewolf in The Howling.
Yeah.
It was an odd choice for a first movie, playing a werewolf, but I'd always loved horror movies. And it was very challenging.
You've collaborated with him numerous times.
He's been so good to me. I've done at least 10 or 12.
Inner Space.
So Inner Space. He cast me. He has joked that if he couldn't figure out how to cast a part, he simply gave it to me. And so he's been over the years wonderful. He loves actors that he trusts. If he worked with you before, I mean, literally, when we shot Inner Space, there was my character, the cowboy, is of indeterminate ethnic origin. Muammar Gaddafi had been
Such
on the
a good
cover.
part.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's
so good.
So good in it.
I wanted
the
I wanted
memes.
to look like Muammar Gaddafi because he was on the cover of
'Cause who
Time
doesn't?
magazine. So I took it to my wig maker. I had very dark skin, and I had an accent that was supposed to be a Farsi, an Iranian accent. I don't think anybody knew what I was, but I listened a lot. And I had a gold tooth because at the audition I took an almond roca wrapper, put it on my tooth.
Did you really?
All that stuff
Brilliant.
was stuck in the movie. There were no lines to audition with. It had so few lines that I improvised. Because Joe Dante, if you ever meet him, talks a little like this. Well, Steven thinks that the cowboy should be, he should be scary. But, it's a comedy. It should be funny. But we got to fool Steven into thinking you're going to be scary. So we're going to shoot an audition where you look scary. So,
Oh my God, that's great.
So we shot this Sergio Leone close-up where my face is lit and falls into darkness. And I literally sat there because there were no lines. I said, I read from you remember everybody had a VCR back then and the instruction manual was how to set the timer? How to set the clock?
Please.
This is how to set clock in machine. I did this thing where I just did a funny voice like this. And then I said, I love this country. This is a great country. I love this country. I'm going to sing a medley of some of my favorite songs. And then I went, I got spurs that yingle, yingle, yingle. And I did happy trails to you. And then I did, I'm an old, I did yippee-i-oh-hey. And they thought that was so funny. They said, sing in the movie. Just do something like that. So the scene in the script, it says the cowboy, it's one line. It says the cowboy is preparing for a night on the town. So what do? The day of the shoot, I bring in an entire pillowcase full of cowboy boots. Because I'm in a hotel room. Oh, I also asked to have, because when I was working in Berkeley Rep, I saw this kid walking down the street who'd built a boombox into a suitcase and pulled it after him. So I said, I'd like a boombox pulled into the suitcase. So we would pull the suit. This is before rollaway bags. Anyway, I just would tell them, and they just did it, right? So Joe says, okay, you're getting ready to go out. Where do you want me to put the camera? And I said, well, here's what I'd like to do, Joe. Do you ever see the world of Susie Wong?
Yeah.
You remember? I Enjoy Being a Girl. I want to do the macho male version of I Enjoy Being a Girl. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to be trying on boots,
All the boots.
like that, right? And then the cast-offs, I'm going to throw the boots I don't want, and then I'm going to get up in front of the mirror and just preen. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to preen with? I don't know. What do you got? They go, here's a hairdryer. So it was all just, but came out of the concept of, I am the greatest fucking guy in the world. Every woman wants, just the pure ego, peacock on display. Who's going to let a guy like me do that? Only Joe Dante. Everybody else would laugh in my face going, nah, I don't think so.
That's great. That's great.
So he's, again, lucky, wonderful man, loved, and he had a little troupe of players, the wonderful Kevin McCarthy, the wonderful Dick Miller. We all got to be in, sometimes we had a big part, sometimes we had one line, but it was just, you don't say no to him.
Were you ever when you first came out to LA, how did you feel about the camera, working in front of the camera?
No, that's a good question.
It's a great question. I did not understand reaction shots. I thought, that a reaction shot had to stay alive. And if I was listening, if I had a scene where I'm listening for 20 minutes, when they shot the master, and if I only had one line, I shot my line. But then they would run the whole scene, and I would never do anything. I'd just be like this. And I learned that do anything you want in a reaction shot. You're alone. No one explains that to you all. So it doesn't have to be, I mean, obviously it's nice to key it, to listen to different people, the natural things, but also just if there's a moment where your attention wanders or you reveal something about how you feel about the talker that's a little, anything like that. I didn't know that. I just thought all I had to do was stand there like a stone and stare at whoever was talking.
Well, how did you? I mean, I don't quite know how you sort of juxtapose that with actually being on stage. It's not what you would have done on stage.
You're absolutely right.
Is it the frozen in fear with the camera on you that you?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot as a young actor. If I had one piece of advice that I learned from the play Gemini, from playing a character who rigidly rejected his family background, was panicked about his sexuality. At that time, I was the kind of actor who went, oh, my character wouldn't do that. That is the worst thing an actor can ever say, ever. And whenever I work with an actor, and sometimes adult, long-time actors say, oh, I wouldn't do that. I hate hearing that. And I never say
I as a person.
No. No, as a character, my character.
Right.
I know my character, and he wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That, to me, is the mark
You're cutting
of
yourself
a small-minded actor. Because your character, your character could do anything, right? He may do it in a different way because of his background and his needs and his objectives and all that. But to cut yourself off at the knees and to say, I wouldn't do something, I wouldn't do that. And that's the way in Gemini, when I got that totally charmless part, because, my character wouldn't laugh.
You boxed yourself in.
He wouldn't have an involuntary response. He wouldn't laugh in spite of himself.
Yeah.
That was so wrong. It was just so wrong.
No.
And then it took me a while, in response to your question, Dominic, it really took me a while to give myself the freedom in front of a camera that I would have had on stage, because we have that wonderful rehearsal process where you get to breathe. But the hardest adjustment, of course, is that you go in and you stage the scene, you block it, but you never really rehearse.
No.
You've talked about, you don't like this guy because your father likes him. He's your rival with your father. The director says one or two little things, but you don't really work with the other actor.
All the back
just
history is done either on the loo or sitting in bed.
And
that's true.
And I do remember the sound man saying, coming up to me and saying, you don't have to be that loud. The mic is right here. I was still playing to the mezzanine still in the balcony, right? Because I would get angry, and I would talk like this, he would say, and then I really did learn how to use my voice. I mean, you have to use your voice in a different way on stage, obviously.
You do.
But the great thing about film acting, I remember one of my acting teachers, and he was really a stage guy. He didn't know a lot about film himself, but he said something. It's not a rule, but it's an observation that I think he used to say that emotion is more important on stage and thought on film. Now, obviously, they're both important, right? But still, it's true. You can have a reaction shot that almost nothing happens and just see a little glimmer of something in an actor's eye in a close-up that you could never do.
There's a beautiful shot of you and Jerry and Someone to Look Over Me, when it flickers, when you realize that you're in love with her.
Yes.
And I have to say, I mean, I watched it a couple of nights ago, and I was like, that guy's fucking great.
Yeah, that was.
It was a great episode.
That was very sweet. That was our My Fair Lady episode. I called it.
Terrific.
And that little.
She came alive in that episode too.
I had to think in advance because I was supposed to sing the whole duet, and I said, because I read the stage direction, that we see that the doctor looks at her, something like that. But I said, I think I'm going to stop singing for that one line when it happens. Now, of course, I could have sung the line, and they could have cut it out, But I said to Robbie
Robbie
McNeil
directed it, didn't he? Robbie Duncan, yeah.
Yeah, and he was great. And I said to him, I think when I catch her eye, or I see her, but she doesn't see me looking at her, I said, I'm just for a second, I'm going to forget what I'm doing. And
it was very, very beautiful and telling. And it was a terrific episode, mate.
Thank you. My relationship with Seven was really sweet and fun.
great.
Do you know, and I don't know the show intimately, but I've done some back reading, and then they sort of elbowed in this nonsense with Chakotay at the end, didn't they?
Yes, there was some of the fans were not happy about that.
If anyone, it should have been the Doctor that maybe wandered off with her heart. Yeah.
Well, that raises all those issues, though. He doesn't age, and then she grows old and dies. It's like a Twilight Zone. I did. The relationship I have with Seven came out of a suggestion I made to Brandon. Used to tease me that he would sneak out when he still smoked. He would sneak out of the writer's room, and I would jump out of a bush, going, Brandon, I was thinking, and it's pretty much true. I had lots of ideas. Oh, did I have ideas? But when Kes was leaving our show, Kes had been the Doctor's confidant. Kes was the one character that he felt, because she was the youngest,
treated
she
him
was
like a
new
person.
aboard, and she treated me like a person. So she was, at the same time, I'm ostensibly mentoring her to be my assistant in sick bay. She is really mentoring me in my developing sense of self and what I'm entitled to and all that as an artificial intelligence. Okay. So when she leaves, I said to Brandon, I'm really concerned that I'm going to just go back to being the arrogant windbag again with the rest of the crew, which is fun, but we've already seen he has a different side, and now who do I show that to? I don't have a confessor anymore. And he said, well, we have this new character coming, 7 of 9. And I see, and he says,
You're gonna love her.
Think of a unique way to relate to her. Well, you see 27-year-old Jerry Ryan, and I'm 41, 42 or 43-year-old. We could all think of a unique way we'd love to relate to Jerry Ryan that is not necessarily appropriate for the character.
Well, what ways are those?
She's very
I thought
pretty.
about,
Think out of the box.
I was very respectful, and I said, I think, I went back to Brandon a week later and said, wouldn't it be fun if I take the relationship with Kes, flip it around, and the Doctor now thinks that he's a better teacher of how to be human than a human. Meaning, she's been a Borg. Right. She has to reclaim her humanity. I have to teach her how to behave appropriately in various professional and social situations. And I will do it with role playing. I'll say, you pretend to be this, I'll be this, and I teach her how to behave, because she has as a Borg, she has zero social skills and zero affect. Not unlike the way I had been at the beginning of season 1, but now I had developed. So it had loads of comic potential that I could teach, let me teach you how to be human, even though I'm not. But that culminated in that episode where I fall in love with my star pupil. And it was great to have.
Was it inspiration for the Holograms handbook that you then went on to write?
Yes, the Holograms handbook.
Interacting with organics. I find that amazing.
I had a great friend, Jeff Yeager, got a guest star of a 2-part episode of these renegade holograms who hijack me. And they're like a holograms rights group because we're not being given the respect we deserve as sentient intellects. So this group of holograms had stolen a spaceship, and they were on the run, the sort of vigilante holograms, and they hijacked me. So I'm explaining to my friend Jeff, who's guest starring. He got the part completely on his own. I was delighted to see him there. And he said, well, what is a hologram on Star Trek? So I said, well, all right, so we can handle instruments. Don't ask me why, but somehow it's like transporter theory, matter into energy, energy into matter. So we can handle real things. They can turn us on or off. We don't, and he said, boy, you know everything about this. You should write a book. And I went, ding,
I should write a book.
And Jeff was about to get married. So I said, here, I'll make you an offer. This is while we were shooting the show. I said, we'll write a book. You do the art, and I'll write the stories, and I'll give you half the guarantee.
No, bless
so
you.
it helped pay for his wedding.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice.
Oh my God.
And because I knew he was Jeff is an amazing sculptor, painter. Cartooning, which he's great at, is like way down here. I mean, he is the most famous garage model maker in the world. People in Japan have full collections of his stuff. He's famous as a sculptor. He can make your head this big with absolute perfect detail that everyone will identify you. You could carry it in your wallet instead of a driver's license.
That's impressive.
And everybody would know that was you. That's how perfect he is, sculpting with a pin.
I want one.
So,
In clay?
and
Robert.
yeah, no, he's a genius. But anyway, we did the book, and then of course Brandon Braga goes, "Wait a minute," because I told him, I said, I'm writing a book for something. And Brandon Braga turns that into an episode. There's an episode called Author.
Yeah.
So he stole my idea.
my
of
God.
writing a book.
There is too, isn't there?
Yeah.
I
So-
wondered about is the episode
a great
called
episode.
Timeline, where you meet your maker?
Yes.
And there's a scene where you're talking to
It's
yourself.
called it's called Lifeline.
Lifeline. Yeah.
And
And if you notice, I am the first Star Trek actor to get a writing credit in that. I share story credit with that because I pitched that idea.
well, that's a
and
that's
that
a
was
hard thing to get.
It is.
we tried.
I tried it several
I
times.
was surprised.
I was
Yeah.
turned down with some good ideas too.
I know.
I
Some
was-
of them I thought kind of slipped into a few episodes.
Well, we all feel that, because I had
Yeah.
also, well, never mind. Never mind about that. But anyway, I got a writing credit. You had a question.
the
though.
question was, you have that scene with your maker, and he's saying that you're
Dr. Zimmerman.
Your iteration 1, you're completely obsolete and irrelevant, and you say, "Well, no, wait a second, I've evolved as that character. I can do these things."
Mm-hmm.
When you started playing the Doctor, how narrow was the box, and how much influence did you have within creating something like that?
growth,
the
yeah.
growth, and the
was
evolution.
He was completely. I mean, he had no affect. The description in the pilot script: colorless, humorless, a computer program of a doctor. That was the description.
He wasn't even called the Doctor then. He was the EMH.
Right. Oh, and the
wasn't
reason he was called the Emergency Medical Hologram,
Yeah.
and he was going to be called Doc Zimmerman. That's what in the original Voyager Bible, every line I have is Doc Zimmerman. And about 3 weeks before we went on the air, we had just shot this really cool scene, episode 7 or something, where I say to Kess, "I should like to have a name," and they do this boom, 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 boom close up right into me like that, with this sort of like, "Am I allowed to have a name?" It was a really sweet moment. So I go to Rick Berman. I say, "Are we going to list me in the opening credits as Doc Zimmerman?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, we're doing this whole story arc on, may I have permission to select a name, and what name will I pick? Aren't we kind of giving the store away in the opening credits?" And he went, "You're right." And they changed the opening credit. I was Doc Zimmerman in the opening. I know this.
Oh, no
because-
kidding.
I know this because these visual effects guys gave me my original title, Doc Zimmerman, Robert Picardo. But because I said this, they turned it into the Doctor. And in that moment, we ripped off 60 years of British science
Doctor
fiction.
Who. Yeah.
I'd
Doctor
never
Who,
seen
yeah.
Doctor Who. I didn't know that.
I told Connor that this morning. You're one of only 2 characters on long sci-fi shows that are called The Doctor.
The Doctor. And I didn't know we were ripping them off. But
Yeah.
and then once they had done that, the whole idea of an indecisive computer program, an indecisive machine, is funny.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And so that is why I pick names and discard them. Sometimes other characters name me, and I never settled on a name until the
finale,
which was also an alternate timeline. So we don't know if that stuck.
and you went with Joe.
I know, that was the joke. It was a funny joke in my family because I'm the only male not named Joe. My father was Joe. My brother's Joe. All of my uncles were Joe. I mean, like, Joe is the family name for a male. So I thought it was hilarious. And they didn't know that. But I thought, well, that's funny.
Private joke.
But
Private Joe joke.
the whole, and a lot of so the not having a name came from a suggestion. It was not my intention was only the logic of what we were doing,
Right.
what we'd already shot, and it
Right.
just made no sense to me. I mean, at least call me the Doctor until I pick a name, then season 2 change the title maybe,
Right.
right? And they never did. And they never decided. The other thing, I remember early on in season 2, I said to Jerry Taylor, one of our 3 creators, I said, I think it would be funny if when the Doctor is working alone in sickbay, he's listening to opera. Why do you think that's funny? Well, I have no emotional affect at all. But if I chose the most emotional form of human expression to listen to, that immediately sets up a question in the audience's mind, a dynamic of why is he listening to this huge, Okay, so she said to me, and I remember, well, we're doing a lot of Klingon opera stuff on Deep Space Nine, so it's not good timing, but I'll keep it in mind.
Oh my God.
So I forgot.
The Klingons got the opera.
But I forgot that I'd asked her until I saw an advanced copy of a script that was starting in 2 days. The first scene, I'm singing opera. And I ran across the entire Paramount lot. The writers on our show wanted to be as far away from us as possible.
Yeah.
They were like on the other side of the
Gary
lot.
Cooper building. Yeah.
I ran across, I knocked on her door, went in and said, no, you misunderstood
Just
me.
listening.
I don't want to, I want to listen. I don't want to sing. And she said, well, can't you sing? I said, I'm not an opera singer. I wanted to listen. You didn't understand me. I wanted to listen to it. She said, well, it's too late now. She said, try it. If you're not good enough, we'll replace your voice. And that's how I came to sing on the show.
Wow.
And that was really scary. And the first time when I sang O Suave Fanciulla in that, I'm okay. Not that good. But I started to get better. By the time I did La Donna Immobile and Questo e Quello and all that, I got pretty good.
All right.
But
There was only once that they had you dubbed, didn't they?
yeah, they only in Virtuoso.
It was too high for you,
Virtuoso.
It was too high and just too hard. Because when it's very hard. Faking opera singing is not quite as hard as faking heart surgery, but it's on the way. You know what I mean? It's like you don't want exactly. I mean, you don't. If you're not an opera singer, people are gonna know.
Very
It
specific.
ain't like riding the bike.
No, but I think I got away with it pretty well, and it's funny. My feelings were hurt, even though because I really tried to sing those other songs. But the guy who sings them in Virtuoso, and my voice changed. I mean, I sing the first third of the episode, and then it abruptly changes to a real opera singer, who's the guy they hired, Agostino Castagnola.
Castiglione, yeah.
He taught me all the other songs, so I already had a friendship with him. He was great.
Wow.
And he would teach me phonetically how to sing them.
Brilliant.
And then he did, and he recorded them, and I recorded all the music. I just wasn't good enough. It was just too hard.
But you've got a great voice.
Well, thank you. But now it's gone down. Now I'm truly a bass baritone. At least then I was a baritone with a couple of high notes. 10 years from now, I'll be like this.
What was your audition like? What was your audition like for Star Trek?
Like any idiot. First of all, I'm doing a play at the Mark Taper Forum. Mark Taper Forum is a very respected theater downtown, the Music Center. I'd wanted to work there since I had come to California. I wanted to work there since 1981. It took me 15 years or 14 years to finally get a play there. I am playing, miraculously, a doctor with a terrible bedside manner in the play. No, I am. It's a major role. And David Schweitzer, who's a director from Yale, who was it's a very theatrical play. It's about what women do throughout history to mangle their bodies, to suit men. So the first act is in the present, and I'm a doctor treating a woman who has some sort of cancer from having enormous breast implants. The second act, I'm a doctor treating a woman in the 19th century who's become hysterical from her corset being so tight she can't. Then the third act, I think it's a Chinese woman who's bound her feet in China. I'm the same doctor throughout time. It's weird. Weird. Wow. Okay, I'm in final rehearsals for this, right? Tech week, 10 out of 12s. My agent says, well, there's a Star Trek. And I said, I don't have time to audition. He said, well, don't you get a lunch break? I said, I get a 2-hour lunch break downtown, the middle of the day, in a 12-hour day. I'm not going to go audition. You got to audition. I said, but I can't take the job if I get it. I'm working. He said, lie. Like any good agent. So I went, I lied, but I didn't want to read for the doctor because the part looked boring. I went and read, I said, I want to read for this other part, Neelix, because a friend of mine,
Neelix, wasn't it? Yes.
A friend of mine read the script, said, this is a funnier part. And you don't know about the makeup. They won't tell you. You've heard this story with the makeup roles. Right. My agent called and said, my client wants to know how many minutes. And they said, we'll get back to you. And then when they call back, they go, more than 15 minutes of makeup. And you're right, 3.5 hours a day is more than that.
Yes.
It's also You know what I mean? It's also more than 3.
It's right.
So you could say that. But anyway, I auditioned for Neelix. I came this close to getting it. And this, I tested for it. I didn't know my competition because Ethan Phillips and I are old friends. I'd already known
Well
him.
before this.
Well before. We met in New York when we were both doing hit plays off-Broadway before Gemini. He was doing Modigliani. So we've known each other. And I always liked him. We didn't know each other very well before Voyager. Now we're really close friends. But I auditioned by myself. My agent called and said, you didn't get it. And I said, that's fine. And they said, but the producers asked if you're willing to come back in for the part they were originally interested in you for. And I said, my agent, I don't get the joke. I just don't get it. Because they said they wanted to be funny. I said, he's colorless and humorless and has no lines.
That's hilarious.
That's
And
tough.
they said, I said, all right, I'll give it a try. And I heard later from the casting director, they saw 900 actors.
Oh my God.
All the way up to
heavens.
Howard Hesseman. They were seeing comedians. But a comedian can deliver a funny, but there were no funny lines.
Right.
So I did, and I've told the story a million times, so I apologize to your listeners who've heard it.
They're gonna
I
eat it up.
ad-libbed
You
at the end of
ad-libbed
the
at the end,
audition,
didn't you?
and that's what got me the job. I did.
I'm a doctor, not a light bulb.
Exactly. At the end.
You got
I'm
a
a
giggle.
doctor, not
Yeah.
a nightlight.
Not a
Because
nightlight.
because the last line in the script was, I believe someone has failed to terminate my program. So there are 14 people looking at me, and I'm the only actor who read the lines once too, because they'd already seen me. So I only had to read for this character one time. But after that, and I said, I'm a doctor, not a nightlight, with this sour expression. Got a huge laugh, walked out, and was hired that day. And my children, years later, because my kids were very young, they taught me. They said, Dad, the reason you were cast is your resting bitch face. Because when my face is at rest, I look mean, I have very dark eyes, and I look, don't mess with me.
I'm smiling.
Right.
Yeah, so
hilarious.
my children taught me my secret weapon was just that I looked cranky at rest.
At rest.
Brilliant. So, Bob, quite apart from your fantastic performance as the Doctor on Voyager, you also did Star Trek School, and you got to do a couple of episodes, if I'm not mistaken. One of which I watched the other night. I loved it, actually. One Small Step.
Thank you.
And
So-
it was beautifully handled.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was really
Did you do the thing
well
with
done.
Pasternak? Is that
Did
Star
you
Trek
did
School?
you work with Jim Pasternak at the LA Film School like
Jim Pasternak was a
Roxanne
professor.
Dawson
of mine.
did? That's who she sent
college.
me to him.
No,
No?
I didn't. We had an informal program where we would go to editing, where
Editing, yeah.
we would tail other directors that we, especially if we liked their style or had a good friendship with them. And I know Roxanne may, and other of my colleagues may
She
have
made
studied
other arrangements.
outside. Some of my colleagues like Roxanne, like Robbie McNeil, and to a somewhat lesser extent, Tim, have devoted really their careers since then to directing and doing a great job and great work. I felt as well as my 2 episodes turned out, especially One Small Step, which was basically a tribute to early space explorers, which I found particularly
Enterprise
interesting.
has basked in some of that
Exactly.
beauty amongst the fandom. Yeah.
But I felt my colleagues all wore the mantle of directing in a way that was much more suited to them. I found it a little nerve-wracking. It's all about keeping the schedule. And even though you're working with a crew who loves you and all that, and a production company who supports you, I just thought, I don't feel like I'm going to relax into this. I found it more stressful. I don't necessarily like 100 people asking me questions. Some people love that when you're in control of everything and people wait in line to ask you questions. I really relished when it was over, going back to just my responsibility as an actor. So although I think I succeeded at it, could have done a good job. And perhaps if I'd started at an earlier time of life, one of my earlier series, China Beach, I trailed directors a little bit on that, but then the show ended and I didn't get a chance there. But if I had directed at that time, I might have
Maybe.
felt
I
differently.
loved China Beach, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We haven't
That
talked
was,
about it yet,
what a
but
great
it's
show.
so good.
amazing experience, that show, a real performance-driven show.
Before my time, I'm afraid.
Before your time.
In LA.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't get it in England.
Oh.
No, it's funny.
We got the Wonder Years, but no China Beach.
Well, I in any case, my fear was that, that because directing and all that, I didn't want to be the kind of guy who ended up, having a coronary looking up at the stage floor ceiling.
There's that.
Going, well, at least I directed 4 episodes of LA Law. So
No, it's a high workload, and anyone that directs will tell you that. Yeah.
yeah. So as I said, it wasn't for me. I thought I set out to be an actor because I love acting, and I don't. And this other thing, although I think I'm good at it, and I was particularly good working with the actors, I think, rather than...
You did a lovely job with the chap who was flying the Mercury mission.
Yeah.
How did you do the weightlessness in those scenes?
Faked it with... literally put him on just a rolling cart where his body, he's put something over the furniture blanket so he could lay there, and he's literally we're just slowly moving him. When he had to rise up the stairs, we put him on a camera dolly just so that when that boomed up, so that it looked like he was
amazingly
effortlessly,
done. Effortlessly, it looked very real.
Thank you.
Yeah, he was terrific too. Do you remember the actor's name?
Oh, of course I do. His dad, Greg Morris, was on Mission Impossible. His name is Phil Morris.
Right.
He had a very popular character on Friends. And he's been in a billion things. Terrific guy, wonderful actor, still fit, ready. It looks like he's ready to play football, even though he's in his late 60s. Really good looking.
He really brought that home.
Guy.
That
nothing but nice things to say about him. Never get to work with him.
Yeah. Well, you're never directing again. We should go to maybe some questions.
Unless, of course, you're directing me.
That's right.
Thank you. When Connor suddenly realized...
And good luck with that.
Connor realized he was never going to get a job from me. So.
Let's talk about something.
Well, it's time for some fan questions for the doctor.
All right.
You ready? Stephanie Baker from Patreon asks,
how do you wear all the scarves? Oh, the other doctor.
No.
Oh, Doctor Who, Doctor. Yeah, I see.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
what did you learn about yourself or about life during the pandemic?
Wow.
Good question.
Whoa.
Well,
Let's start with a heavy one.
yeah.
I was going to say, this is not a 4-hour show.
No, exactly.
Well, I hate to say this because so many people suffered and even paid the ultimate price during the pandemic. I actually had a pretty good time early in the pandemic. I considered it a vacation at gunpoint. And I had recently remarried. So my spouse and I suddenly had all this wonderful time together playing house.
To do what?
Lovely.
To cook for me. I love to cook, to eat,
Stanley
to sit
Tucci.
in the garden. To walk around the lake, to take walks outside.
Lovely.
It was really nice to go hiking in the woods.
Were you living in LA or?
No, I'd recently relocated out, so it was all new to me. So, but if I learned, and I'm going to give now sort of a jokey answer, and then I'll give you a serious one. The other thing I learned in LA is I love doing self-tapes. After years and years of going in the room and auditioning live, forget it. If COVID had one good outcome for me, I would say it's that we get to shoot our own auditions at home. I've turned my new spouse into a terrific cinematographer, and I love shooting my own scenes because you can totally control it.
You are a rare bird.
Yeah.
I know everybody else hates them. Everyone
talked about
hates
a
them.
lot.
But if you it's a pain in the ass if you don't live with someone who is willing to learn how to do it, to read the off-camera lines quickly, and to really help you. My daughter, who's a professional editor, she's the best to audition with, because if I audition with her, I almost always get the job.
Wow.
Because she knows me so well. She has terrific pace, and she also has an eye for when Dad, last time you did this, I liked it better, but then the last line was better, so she'll give me notes.
shortcut.
But
Yeah.
having said that, my spouse is also getting that good, and my daughter is too busy with her own career to bother her anymore. So I love self-tapes, and that is strictly a result of COVID, that now we don't have to go in the room anymore.
Very true.
But finally, it just gave you more of an appreciation, not just for life, but for your loved ones, spending time with your loved ones, and seeing my children who live both in New York. I went a whole year for the first time in their lives. I went a whole year without seeing them. And no matter how much FaceTime you do and how much talking on the phone, you really miss the in-person.
I just went home for the first time to London in 3 years, and it was quite emotional.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been the longest time I've ever been away from my birth country, and it was something to go back and see those people and that culture, and
And that's I would say that is the lesson, how precious that is, and how when it's taken away from us, even for a period of time that went on forever while we were in the middle of it, but we all secretly knew it wasn't really going to be forever. If we just tried to take care of ourselves and all that, we were going to get past it. We just didn't know when.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you finally get back, as you did, and when I finally went back after a whole year and saw both my daughters for dinner and all that, you go, this was
by the grace of God, because not everyone made it, and not everyone had to be infirm or diabetic or overweight. A lot of quite fit people didn't make it either.
You're absolutely.
You also had the advantage of not having children in school.
Yes.
Oh,
kidding.
Yeah, no,
in 2 rooms in an apartment.
Yeah, my son. That was rough having to Zoom a couple of years of school, and,
I can
literally,
only imagine.
Even the transition into high school. I wonder how that will all play itself out. The longer we get away from it.
I was saying at the time,
It had.
Sure. No, there are lingering.
No one says you're only 61 once.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that took a second for
Until
me.
now. Another question.
Evan Combs from Patreon asks, I love your YouTube videos. They're funny, snappy, short. How did you come up with the idea for Technobabble Alfresco?
Again, my daughter. My daughter said, "Dad, your most popular videos are when you reference Star Trek." Because I was doing all these character videos, which my wife very patiently shot, where I play multiple characters. I play the world's oldest Italian gigolo, Alfonso.
Amazing.
Oh, I've
I
seen him.
play Eva the diva, who is a former...
Your middle name.
A former opera star who has had an extraordinary life, except it's quite boring to listen to. But, she just thinks I love playing characters, now don't joke, folks, that are completely self-absorbed. They have no idea how obnoxious they are, how tedious they are. They think they're wonderful. That's what Alfonso and Eva have in common. And then I play a character called the telepathic composer who can telepathically put music in your head, whether you like it or not. Just weird things that occurred to me.
Worm bugs.
Right. But my daughter said, "Dad, you're doing all this hard work," and also she had self-interest because she was editing all these things, which took a lot of time. If Technobabble Alfresco is in one, for those of you who haven't seen it, and I can't really consider you a Star Trek fan if you haven't seen it.
Oh, shit.
But I will take a speech.
That's right.
I will take a speech that I did in Voyager, and I will do it in some beautiful outdoor setting, anywhere in the world, wherever I'm traveling or whatever, and I'll do it line perfect, right? People think I remember it. I actually do, folks. I do review it, although some of them I remember remarkably well. And I shoot them while I'm spinning around slowly. I do it just to make people seasick, and then I say what the season was and what the episode is. So it's like a little quiz on your star. And I've been doing this. I don't even know how many I've done. And then now I've started doing fake ones where I do something that sounds Star Trek. I say, where I'll say, 7, our database did, 7, thank you for joining me on this away mission. Our database didn't have very much on this planet, but I do understand that the female of the species always appear completely naked. So I suggest, there you have. Okay, thank you. I do fake,
In your subspace uniform.
made up things. And then I go, come on, guys, do you really think that was an episode? But normally they're real. But I just decided that to do the occasional fake one kept everyone.
Well, that's a fun game.
Yeah.
We should do that game.
What'd you call it?
Technobabble Alfresco. Alfresco meaning outside. And I've done them in Greece, in Italy, in, I believe, Paris. Usually
Did
just...
you Kickstarter that?
Well, no. It's all for free. All for free, baby. Not like some podcasts I know.
Don't you
Hey, we're
start.
available to the entire world.
Hey, at least
for
you give
free.
me a
LaVar's staring me down right now.
At least I'm getting a free drink. I should mention this to my Delta Flyer hosts. Look here, you get a little drink. I understand you get a little takeaway gift.
Yeah.
What a thoughtful thing to give your
Carrots and
colleagues.
celery, maybe a couple of pretzel bites.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I heard rumor about something even better, but that could have been made up. But the point is, do you hear that, Delta Flyer guys? Think about it.
You gotta just get him on the show with us, and we'll show him.
Yeah,
the
you
way.
should appear on each other's show.
We would. Yeah, it would be
Bing
amazing.
bang. I'm going to suggest this crossover. It'll be like all the NCIS shows getting together to figure out my suicide,
There it is.
which they did this season, by the way.
Yeah.
On NCIS, I killed myself. I worked 4 hours. Then they spend 3 hours trying to figure out why I killed
Everyone
myself.
else got paid.
What a great job that was.
Good gig.
You get money from all three
That top
series.
the show 3 times?
Highly recommended.
Highly recommended.
All right. Michael Sukenko from Patreon asks, Garrett Wong claims you took home half of the Voyager set. Is this true?
That I did?
Yes.
Speaking
No,
of
it's
it,
not.
Speaking of.
No, Garrett has a penchant for exaggeration. But I got a couple of chunks.
Yeah.
Many of them were auctioned for the benefit of either the Pasadena Playhouse, which is the state theater of California, for the
Karen
Pediatric
McCluggage.
AIDS Foundation, for different things like that. And I had bar pieces of the warp core banister, that went around it, like this handrail. That my dream was to make a man cave in my house downstairs and turn that into a bar with glass over it. It never happened. So that's gone now, Joe.
So not half, but like a third.
No. I would say no more than like maybe 3%.
3%.
3% of Voyager.
Really?
Alex Bamford from Facebook asks, Robert Picardo, the doctor, and Richard Woolsey walk into a bar. What happens?
People fall asleep everywhere.
Oh, that's not true.
Richard Woolsey's my character on Stargate Atlantis. I'm very proud to be the only actor who played, regulars on both series. Now, of course, Connor was a major guest star in the Stargate franchise, very well loved, played a creepy villain. I started out as a villain. Richard Woolsey was sort of a think tank bureaucrat, complete douchebag. I mean, introduced as an utter character, colorless, no sense of humor douchebag.
You were brought in by a politician.
I do.
Colorless,
No.
no sense, and it couldn't be further from the truth.
Thank you. If I had a stock in trade as an actor, and I mean this, it's to play characters that you initially do not like. Sometimes it's called the guy you love to hate, but really it's a character that, for whatever reason, he rubs you the wrong way. He can be arrogant or officious.
Oh,
or
no,
whatever.
I'm getting it.
And see, you show your neck and he bites anyway. And then you grow to like the character. Even the coach on the Wonder Years was just my vision for that character, Coach Cutlip on the Wonder Years, was Richard Nixon with an IQ of 60. If Richard Nixon, he had all
was a gorilla.
he had all the paranoia of Nixon and none of the IQ points. But I sometimes use people from life, but turn them on their ear. A lot of the Doctor, frankly, I used to watch Lost in Space when I was a kid, and if you remember Mr. Smith on that, I can't remember the actor's name. He was wonderful, and he was sort of a little fruity, just a little, a little.
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah,
and,
but what was it? That Jonathan?
I forget his name.
He was Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
But he had that kind of arch way about him, and that that's holier, the more superior.
Theatricality.
Yeah, and the Doctor. The smartest thing I did with the Doctor was to start as far away, with as little as possible. Never smiling. I never smiled the first 2 seasons. The first time the Doctor smiled, he went like this. I mean, it literally was like it was a grimace. It had never been used. It was almost a grimace. It was like
Jonathan Harris.
Yeah, Jonathan Harris. Thank you. So I think. But if you show the audience, if you get the audience, if you play a character who on the surface is a douchebag, you have to make them see enough but what motivates his behavior so that they root for him to not be a douchebag. You could be a happier hologram. You could be a happier gym teacher. You could be, if you just will accept certain things about yourself, about the world, about what people think of it. It's all that, it's that letting them peek a little behind the mask. so that they're on your side. So, but what was great about my character was unlike any other character in Star Trek, in my opinion, because he had negative qualities. The Doctor acted like an arrogant baby. He could be cowardly. He could be a pain in the ass. He didn't have to act like a Starfleet officer because he was a new technology. And that, to me, was the key to some of the delight that the audience took in him, because they're so used to you guys being heroes. Right.
Yeah.
And I could just be, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that.
No,
I could
I'm
be
functional only.
Exactly.
I'm a doctor.
I have no interest in hero
and it was,
activity.
It was that sense, I called it Milton's sense of injured merit.
Right.
In the third episode, when Kes comes to get soil at sickbay to make her hydroponics bay test, and I rattle off what I am. You know, I have the combined... I'm programmed with the knowledge from 24 medical reference books. I have the personal experiences of 3,000 Starfleet medical officers. But let me get your dirt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get the whole picture that he's like has this enormous power
Grandiose.
of knowledge and complete vulnerability. You can turn me on or off like a light switch, and I don't like that. I don't like being this incredibly brilliant and an asshole like you, and I'm only pointing at you because if I point at him, he'll think I'm getting back at him. An asshole like you can turn me on and off. That would
now
make...
I'm offended. point, mother.
Oh, let's give up and point at Kyle. An asshole like you can turn me on and off. Every time your dog pees on the floor and you think he's sick,
You're out of here.
I think my dog is sick. Can you... I'm not a veterinarian. I'm an emergency medical hologram.
James Pilson Wood from Twitter.
I love that name. Say it again.
James Pilson Wood.
What a wonderful name you have.
Oh, the simple and heartbreaking question has to be Star Trek or Stargate?
Not a fair comparison, because I did 170 hours of Star Trek or whatever, and far less of Stargate. However, Stargate was great because we were allowed to... Once you shot the scene as written, you could say, hey, can I say a different line here? Or can I try something? And they were like, oh, yeah. And then they would thank you. Star Trek, if you want to be spontaneous on Star Trek, you must be spontaneous 5 days in advance.
Yeah.
And you call it up and you suggest the line. And it goes up the food chain. And if they liked your line, it appears in the script. Now, I understand it's set in an imaginary future. They don't want any colloquial expressions. They don't want any present day, anything that sounds of the moment. But my only thing is, I loved working on both shows. Obviously, I have many more memories, so Star Trek is ultimately more important. However, Stargate was pure fun, just pure fun. And if you're going to go, as an actor, if you're going to go from one to the other, go from Star Trek to Stargate. The other way around is going to be
Makes sense.
I totally agree.
Yeah, too much culture shock.
You did SG-1, you did Atlantis, and you did SG.
I'm one of the few actors who's been on all three of them.
Yeah.
Was Voyager a happy cast overall?
Oh, I think a very happy cast. Yeah, I mean, really, I love my colleagues, and I mean, like you spend 7 years with people. Yeah, there are moments where people go through there's things that are happening off camera, different times in your life, but by and large, there was a lot of mutual respect there. And we laughed a lot. You know? After the Next Gen cast goofed off so much that we got the word that like, hey guys, we're not going to let you goof off. Production was like, you're not going to
reel it back in.
So that was a note, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Like but we still laughed a lot. And people that are, for example, Robert Beltran, hilarious mimic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just amazing mimic, and he did so many. And
a lot of his delivery, I've noticed as I've been watching Voyager. He's smirking a lot of the time.
Yes, yeah.
He just has this. It's a natural sort of smirky flair, twinkle. Yeah.
But
it's very watchable.
Ethan Phillips, hilarious.
Right.
You know, Robbie McNeil, very funny guy, and Tim Russ playing the Vulcan counterintuitively loved to prank.
Did he?
And it's so weird because he had and Tim, I always thought of Tim as the unsung hero of our show. He's the sort he's the dignity, the bedrock dignity of Starfleet. and we all benefit from his performance.
And when he came
Having
into,
said that, he's a complete douchebag. No, I'm kidding. No, he's a wonderful guy and a really.
He's looking at you over your shoulder right now.
Yeah.
He always
He's actually
is.
glaring at you right now.
No, but I've always felt that he's the character on our show that sets the framework for all the rest of us.
right, I hear that.
He's lovely.
He's a consummate actor, and I really got. I mean, we knew Tim. I knew Tim. I'd even done a little short film with him directing. But it wasn't until he came in for the sit down like this that you
Oh, how funny he is.
really see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just for a few hours, he is extremely funny, very quick-witted, incredibly talented in so many areas.
Oh, here,
I mean, there's nothing this guy can't do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Having said that, also, I'm proud of our captain, Kate Mulgrew. Thought she did
She anchors it
miraculous
really
job.
well, doesn't she?
She did, and she was in an impossible position, being in a male-dominated franchise,
Right.
and everyone had an opinion of what the first female. Everyone had an opinion. Every studio executive, every executive within our
I
production.
can't imagine.
And she had to balance so many.
Miss
And come in and
Pujol could not
replace
Jean-Pierre Pujol.
Yeah,
She
Yeah.
could
No.
not have chewed this off. I don't think. I mean, no disrespect to her, but I don't think that she could have done 7 years of that.
Genevieve.
You know.
No. Nor would she want to. I mean, she came from the one page a day feature
Yeah.
film world.
Yeah, I heard that
She's
she
a
had
wonderful actress. She's
Yeah.
lovely.
Just-
but,
What's this 8-9 pages thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and when do you get to the 12-page day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and Kate, from the moment she stepped on, our show, we were all afraid somebody was going to get fired because once Genevieve left, and it was mutual. Then it was like, well, if they can't find the right woman, they're going to make it a male captain again.
Right.
Then we're going to change the sex of one of the other cast
Right.
members. So everybody felt like, that the sword of Damocles might be hanging over you, right?
Sure.
Right.
And then Kate, just the moment she stepped on stage, it was like, oh, thank God we're safe because she is a natural leader, and just the moment you felt like you're in really good hands the moment she arrived. Never didn't know her lines perfectly. I don't know how she
what I've
learned
heard.
them.
That's what everyone says.
I mean, never looked at the script. I brought my script every day to the set, like the blanket, like Linus's blanket in Peanuts, and I kept it right off camera in between takes because I wanted it to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And also, when you play a computer program, if you're speaking about your area of expertise, you can never go You have to. It has to burst out of you,
flow out of you.
Yeah. So I had to speak really quickly and totally on my game. But Kate did exactly the same thing and had 5 times as much as I had.
In heels, backwards.
In heels backwards, yeah. All right, next question. Now, once you get to the Ginger Rogers reference, you can move on.
Was that what that was?
Sean Thomas Kane from Patreon asks, how does your work on Star Trek influence your role as an advocate for the Planetary Society?
Thank you for asking that. Early on in Voyager's initial run, I was asked to take part in a fundraiser for this group called the Planetary Society, which I didn't know anything about. It was co-founded by Carl Sagan in 1980 with 2 colleagues from Caltech, Bruce Murray and Louis Friedman. In any case, they were having a birthday party for the wonderful Ray Bradbury, who was turning, I think, 70 years old. And they had different people reading Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles. People like Charlton Heston, John Rhys Davies, and then a bunch of my Star Trek colleagues, John Delancey, Tim Russ. So we all were on stage at a beautiful theater that I'd already worked at, the Pasadena Playhouse, and we read this. It was a great night. Got to meet Bradbury, have a wonderful picture with him. And after that event, the Planetary Society, again, it's a nonprofit space advocacy group. Carl Sagan felt in early 1980 that the American public was not as engaged in space exploration after our terrific, successful march to the moon, beating the Russians in the 60s, that the public was less engaged. And he wanted them to have more of a voice, to feel they have, and to be more in touch with exactly what we were doing. Okay. I started to work in their advisory board. I spearheaded various educational challenges for young people. In the late 90s, we landed the first Mars rover, the Sojourner rover, in 98, I believe. Our society had a thing called Red Rover Goes to Mars, where kids could buy a Lego kit, build their own Mars rover. They would make their own Martian surface, a giant sandbox at their school with different peaks and valleys. they'd send their rover to your school, you'd send your rover to their school, and you would map the Mars surface at your competitor school with your rover and send the data back via the internet. It was exactly what we were doing in space at that time, except it was the internet instead of space, and it was a toy rover, but you were still, the kids were learning the exact lessons in junior high school and high school, depending on what their level was. So I got involved with that, visited schools, gave awards to the winners. I was the first and only Star Trek actor to get a public service announcement on a Voyager set for a project called the Mars Millennium Project, where kids who are interested in astronomy could be part of this competition. And I was happy that I did that, because years later, now that I'm on the executive board of the Planetary Society after years on the advisory board, some young woman who's now a PhD in astronomy and works at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. When she was 14, she saw Voyager, saw the PSA. She entered the competition. She won. She went to Montreal or something where there were the finals. Then she decided she loved Montreal. She went to school there. She met her husband there. She got married. She credits me with her entire life.
Oh, my God.
That 1 30-second spot she saw when she was 14 led to her marriage, led to her career. That one letter is worth the 20-some years I put in working with this group.
So sweet.
That's great.
Yeah. It is unwitting, isn't it? The influence, this franchise, this phenomenon, and our small cogs and parts in it have laid the ground for. It's amazing.
Yeah, I take great pride, and it means a great deal.
It comes up a lot in all these interviews, Bob.
The influence that we've had as actors, characters, even people that you meet at conventions, the effect. I never would have thought that I would have encouraged someone in any way.
Well, in
to
a
be an
positive,
engineer.
you mean in a positive
In a positive way.
Yeah.
Criminal? Sure.
You encourage me to be sad.
That's right.
I'll never be as tall or handsome or famous.
No,
I'm sorry.
It's true. And in addition to inspiring people who work on the show, there are all these people that are adults that are presently involved in space exploration who watch the original Star Trek, and we all get lumped in with that same inspirational relationship between Star Trek and NASA, Star Trek and careers in technology and exploration. So we're part of a continuum to those folks. So even though I'll meet somebody who walked on the moon long before I was ever on Star Trek, they still credit either Star Trek or even earlier science fiction, Isaac Asimov, whatever, in inspiring them to want to do that. And they see us as part of that thread, part of that inspirational thread. And that is, it's a tremendous, it's an honor. And it's something you can either go, okay, well, I feel a little awkward about that, or or you can use it. Try to embrace it. Yeah.
That's lovely.
I'm thrilled by it. I mean, and as you get older, I think you become more, the humility turns to more thrill, really, that did I make a difference? A little bit.
I'm sorry, humility, what is that?
I don't know.
All right, we have a few quick ones. Literally everyone on the internet, what did you name the doctor?
Dr. Fancy Pants. That's Brandon Braga's name, but that's what he called me, Dr. Fancy Pants. And in retrospect, it's the best of all of them. So thank you, Brandon.
And literally everyone on the internet asks, will you please sing something?
Ooh, that's going to be dangerous. All right. Will you do harmony? Do you know "You Are My Sunshine"? I'll do the harmony. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. Do you know it? Are you ready? All right, ready? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm not a singer, Bob. I'm not a singer.
You don't sing?
But I will.
All right.
All right, so you're going to do the melody, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I will.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
It was terrible.
Not bad. No one's going to pay to see us.
No.
Oh, that was magical. That's what we call in the film business a magical moment.
Really? Now, let me
about
ask you
verse
about
2?
your experience in the film
Oh,
business.
shit. Let's move on.
I think it's time to play.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Time to
Star
play
Trek
some
trivia.
Star Trek trivia. The rules are very simple.
All right. Well, that's good because then they'll appeal to me.
Yes, it's you three. Connor, Bob, Dominic against producer Mark.
Hello.
The Oracle.
And we're playing for Patreon member Kelly and David Havlick.
So they benefit from our whether we win or lose.
They get a car.
They get a new car.
Yeah.
It's a brand new car. It's this
It
big.
is.
It's that big.
It is.
Right. It's a Matchbox.
Matchbox.
Costs $14.99.
Exactly.
Mark
There you
is
go.
playing for another Patreon member this time. So it's you guys
Oh.
have your own Patreon member.
Oh.
And Mark
So
has
I'm
his
playing
own
for our newest Patreon member as of this moment in time, which is Matt Billy, our most recent, newest Patreon member.
Thanks,
As
Matt.
of what?
All right.
Like the
As
last
of
30
literally
seconds?
right this minute. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All
Matt,
right,
Billy,
let's
and
do
who are we
it.
playing for? Kelly and David.
Kelly and
Havlick.
David.
The Havlicks.
We're playing for the Havlicks and the Have-Notlicks.
That's right.
Thanks for being Patreon members. Thank you to the Random Red Shirt podcast for doing our trivia.
And they
Randoms.
write the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, randos.
Randos.
Yeah.
Zach and Chris, you guys are awesome. Thank you. All right, question number 1. In the Voyager episode, Phage, what organ harvesting alien species steals Neelix's lungs? A, the Vidians, B, the Talaxians, C, the Borg, or D, species 8472?
Do we get it? I think it's the Vidians.
I don't
Am I
know.
right?
What is it?
Oh, am I allowed
Yes,
to
it's
answer?
the
Oh,
Vidians.
The we actually said the Vidians, but you're correct.
Yeah, the Vidians.
The Vidians.
The
Yes.
Vidians.
But he got it. He won. Look at that. How much he knows about our show. Don't you feel bad?
What were you on?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, and don't forget the three of you collaborate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. All
Didn't
right.
need to.
Didn't need it for
Didn't
you.
need to.
Didn't need to.
You're getting good. Okay, question number 2. In the original series episode, Who Mourns for Adonais, what Greek god does the Enterprise crew come into conflict with? A, Zeus, B, Ares, C, Athena, or D, Apollo?
Mark.
I think.
Well, we can
Is it
say,
our
we can
show?
talk out loud.
Is it our show?
No, original series.
Original series.
Read them again, please.
A, Zeus, B, Ares, C, Athena, or D, Apollo?
I'm pretty sure it's Zeus.
I think it's Zeus.
It's Zeus.
Mark. It's Apollo.
I know.
Nuts.
One to one.
Also,
Never
I
would've
think
gotten that.
we're gonna have to put like a time limit on this. If you get like 5 seconds to answer.
I'm sorry. Are we
well, that's-
taking
we're
too
gonna
much
have to
No,
have
not
questions
now. No, we there it is.
Or we could just walk off.
That's
Wait, never
Wait a
come
minute.
back.
You work in the movie industry and you expect us to be on schedule?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there's a very important case on Judge Judy at the moment. I'll be there when.
we have my trailer.
Question number 3. In Voyager, who is the ship's EMH program creator? A, Zephram Cochrane, B, Captain Picard, C, Louis Zimmerman, or D, the Daystrom Institute?
Damn it.
I do that. How does he get it every time?
I know, but
You're
you know
very
it.
good
All
at
right.
the button.
You know I know this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Louis Zimmerman.
Louis Zimmerman.
Or
Pung, pung, 2-1.
Dr.
Louis Zimmerman to you.
Or Dr. Lewis Fancy Pants.
Dr. Louis, yes. Fancy Pan Zimmerman.
Question number 4. What alien species has a biology that requires high temperatures around 400 degrees Fahrenheit? A, the Cardassians, B, the Tholians, C, the Horta, or D, the Gorn?
I think it's the Gorn.
The Gorn?
Well, hang on.
Oh, no. Okay.
It's not the Tholian.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Isn't there?
It's
There's
the
a, wait a minute.
Tholians.
There's a species that is silicon based.
Tholian.
And I thought it was the horse.
Tholians. Yes, sorry, Bob.
Look at you.
What was it again?
Tholians.
The
I
Tholians.
love
yeah.
how
The
excited.
Folians. I never heard of the Folians.
Oh, I
Tholians.
know the Tholians.
What are they? Are they hair?
We shrank them in our Mirror Darkly episodes.
Yeah, you,
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
We made
we
them
eviscerated them.
All right, we never met the
Yeah.
Folians. Sorry, they must have been
Bringing it.
They were in another quadrant. than we were.
Yeah. All right.
All right, last
3-1.
question. Question number 5. In Strange New Worlds, where does Dr. Mbenga's daughter reside due to having a terminal disease? A, the Jeffries tube, B, in carbonite, C, a transporter buffer, or D, on Earth?
Mark. The transporter buffer.
Yeah.
Yay!
About time,
Well,
Mark.
you,
About 3-2.
you still
About
won.
The Havlicks have it.
Now, Star Trek alumni have won this round of Star Trek
Yeah.
trivia for
Brand new car.
Kelly and David Havlick.
Epic.
And I am very sorry, Matt.
Sorry, Matt, our new Patreon member. Please don't let it discourage
But thank you for being our brand
you.
newest, shiniest patron.
Yes, thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. And now we're going to play Stuck on an Island with Connor Trinneer.
Oh my God.
On a
Yeah.
deserted island.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Well,
What have
I'm
we
not there. I'm just hosting.
What
this,
have we decided was? We decided
Stuck
it was
on an
Catalina.
island.
Catalina.
Catalina.
Is this like Colbert's 10 questions or whatever?
I don't know.
Sort of.
I don't know. Basically, so you're stuck on a deserted island for the rest of your life.
Right.
And you are given the Bible or whatever religious book you want and the works of Shakespeare. You also get a bonus item at the end. But most importantly, 4 categories. You choose your cuisine. Can be all of French food or all of Italian food. I have an idea you might select on that one. Your musician, composer. You get all of their works. Your author, same thing. And your dessert. Now, dessert can be like if you want ice cream, you get all ice cream. So let's start with your composer or your musician.
Ah, boy. I probably would pick Van Morrison.
You and LeVar.
Second in a week.
All right.
Your cuisine.
Can I say Mediterranean or I have to say Italian?
You gotta be more
Mediterranean.
specific.
All right. We'll do Italian then.
Italian.
'Cause I like Greek food too.
Your author.
That's a tough one. I already get Shakespeare and I
Yeah.
already get the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'd get a pop.
Huh?
You know, I'd get like a, you know, if you get one of those pop thriller writers, you just have book after book after book, like Lee Child or
Right.
something like that. I mean, you're on an island, right? You want beach reading? I'm going to go with, beach reading.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's going to
Yeah,
be
Lee
who?
Child.
Lee Child. All right. And
I've read a few of his. They're quite good fun.
your dessert.
Ooh, my dessert. Probably, I would say, it's so boring.
Oh, no.
Am I allowed to, can I pick fruit on the island, eat with it? No.
Oh.
No. I'll probably go with,
Who else tried to pick
Tim
seasonal
Russ
fruit?
picked fruit.
Tim?
Yeah.
Tim?
well, see, I figure on the island there's plenty of fruit, so I'd get vanilla ice cream.
There you
Yeah,
go.
there you
Oh,
go.
there you go.
Just vanilla.
You can get all ice
can have
cream.
all
What I
the ice
meant,
cream.
I'm just, all right, I'll take all ice cream, but vanilla is my favorite
But
ice
mostly
cream.
I'll stick with
That's how
vanilla.
you know I'm really a dull guy.
You're really out there.
I love vanilla ice cream.
So now your bonus item, 1, cannot help you get off the island.
Okay.
And 2, you can't pick your lovely wife. You have to be alone on your island.
Okay. All right.
Now, it can also be something that helps you survive more comfortably.
A bonus item? How about a yacht?
No, that's getting off the island.
Okay. What about a yacht in port? What about a yacht without a,
No,
without a
you
motor?
just like the
Broken then you're not on the
all right.
island.
No.
Then I
There's
would,
no yachts.
I would. How about a penthouse?
I think that counts.
Why not? I bet a beautiful view of the bay. No, am I not playing Connor's?
Connor wants you
yeah.
to say machete.
Yeah, or a hammock.
Yeah, you got a hammer.
A hammock?
Get you off,
What's a hammock?
It gets you,
You
off
got
the ground.
mosquitoes and
Gets
everything.
you off the ground. Okay, you know what?
A penthouse gets you off the ground a lot better than a hammock.
That's why I'm like,
I want to feel the pop.
All right.
who was it? Somebody said,
Clearly
I
this
want,
game-
I want marijuana.
This is not. This is not very well thought out. This game.
No, it is. The answers are just sometimes a little bit like, you can't have a
All right.
penthouse.
How about a motorhome?
No.
It can't drive off the island.
You
Come
have
on.
to live on the island in the
As an
environs
Oh,
of
like
the island.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I'll give you
All
good
right.
weather.
What?
I'll give you good weather.
You're giving me good weather. So you've told me to get a hammock, so I'm not going to pick a hammock.
All right. All right.
I don't know.
Grass skirt.
Boy, I guess a posturepedic mattress.
Lovely.
Okay.
That's
There we go.
acceptable.
Okay. It's gonna get wet the first time it rains.
James Darren was okay with a Ferrari. You were okay with that.
Yeah, we were
But who's
okay
going to
with
drive in sand?
that.
It's
You can't
not
sleep in a Ferrari.
He's just going to sit in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go.
All right. Well,
You made this game up?
Yeah.
you know what?
I
Actually, I
question-
don't believe that I did.
Yeah,
I thought I did.
Yeah, okay.
It
I
comes
worry,
from
I worry
a
about your
BBC.
fantasy life.
I worry about your
It's very strong.
Don't worry about it? Okay.
I've known Connor long enough. His fantasy life is fine.
Pretty
Very
good.
strong.
Well, on that note, thank you.
We're gonna get in our Ferrari and
and
drive
we're going to
off.
drive off. You're going to drive off to
Drive
your
into the
penthouse.
water and drown.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
We have
we
a gift for you.
we
Oh,
do.
Thank you.
Yay!
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Oh,
Ooh.
there we are.
Oh, thank you. Alta Mora Siciliana. Yes, very nice. Thank you very much. Piacere. Thank you very much.
I think you'll like
My
it.
friend Alfonso, the world's most famous gigolo, would love to share this bottle of wine with you at some magnificent location. We could sit atop
Not
a penthouse. Yes, and I would pour you a glass and I would say, my dear, I love to get lost in your eyes. But since I cannot do that, you have $20 perhaps you could. No, because I would.
What a gigolo.
Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate this.
Thank
And
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
for,
Thank you. It's been a
for
lot
coming
of
on the show. Really appreciate
We had a
it.
good time.
Yeah.
It's been a joy sitting down with you like this.
Thank you.
Oh.
And Connor, he does all the work.
Oh, shit.
I'm not even making a comment.
Don't make a comment.
Hey, your job is to be cool, man.
Yeah. So get on it, will you?
Well, it's been really lovely, mate.
Yeah.
And so glad you could come.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a joy watching you the last few days, too.
See, look at that. He was. They had to nail him to a chair to watch our show, but he did it. That's what matters.
Right.
What about you?
What were you on? Was it Deep Space Voyage?
These.
Deep Space Voyage.
I just call it the show that robbed us of 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
Jeez.
Trying to get back home.
We call your show. They don't let the door hit you in the ass. They were too soon. They were like unscrewing our panels, going, "We need this for the next show."
Yeah. Oh my God.
Where's my emitter? It's
Yeah.
on Strange New World.
That's right.
You can like, subscribe, and join us on Patreon.